Go. Hey, everybody, it's Mark Pattison back again with another great episode of Finding Your Summit, all about people overcoming adversity and finding their way. And before I get into today's amazing guest, I just want to draw attention again to my website, www.markpattisonnfl.com. And again, you can go and see over 225 of these amazing episodes, which you can find anywhere you find podcasts out on the internet. And there are, again, incredible people doing extraordinary things like today's guest. Also, there's a button that can be directed to the NFL's film, Searching for the Summit, which is now on YouTube. You can check that out, 30-minute documentary of my Everest journey, which was talking about extraordinary. And then finally, I continue to raise money for Higher Ground. I've started a campaign called Amelia's Everest, and I continue to hone on that because we continue to raise money for that great cause, which goes 100% directly to Higher Ground. So on that note, let's get into today's guest. I've got a really remarkable story. Robert Paylor, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Mark. So excited to be here.
Yeah, so I started digging into this story, and your story is really interesting to me because as a former wide receiver in the high school level, the college level, and the NFL level, what happened to you was always like my worst nightmare, right? Of a wide receiver getting strung out from a bad quarterback throw, and put you in some really awkward positions. And for you, back in 2017. You're a rugby player. That's your background. You're big, strong, physical guy. I've seen you on film, and really a pretty intimidating figure, compared to the other guys that were out there. And you guys are a very physical bunch. And to see you guys get in this scrum, I'm surprised not more people are hurt. But for you on that day, why don't you describe and set up like how the events played out, which puts you in your position where you sit, as of now?
Yeah. So May 6, 2017 was the day, easily the day I will remember better than any else for the rest of my life. Competing in the sport of rugby in the Collegiate Rugby National Championship for the Cal Men's Rugby program. I grew up kind of playing the, all-American, like 3 sports: football, basketball, baseball. And in high school, found this sport of rugby through Jesuit High School, over in the Sacramento area, the most successful rugby program there is at the high school level. I think there's 10 national championships now, with the program being around for just about 25 years. So pretty good success rate there looking at this program. And that's where I fell in love with this sport, learned the sport, and then found my way over to Cal, which is bar none the #1 program in history for American rugby, but really any sport, any level, any gender. We've experienced the most success. That day we were fighting for our 31st national championship. I think the only team that has more championships than that is the Harlem Globetrotters, and their games are rigged. So we were doing all right. I'm starting as a sophomore on this team. I'm playing the lock position, which is kind of like the body type and skill set of a tight end in football, where, I'm at the time 20 years old, 6'5", 245. So pretty big body. But I've got to be able to move this field for 80 minutes of continuous play. There are no breaks. There's no water boys going out there to get you fueled up and stuff like that. I mean, you really got to be able to empty your tank out there on that field. And I was known for kind of my physical play, the workhorse of the team. I wasn't getting the ball a ton. I wasn't like doing a lot of the scoring, but I was setting that up, putting my head in those spaces where other people might not put their heads. And it was about a minute and a half into this game, as we're playing Arkansas State, that we're competing what's called a maul. And for those who don't know rugby, a maul is when the bigger guys, we group together in a single unit, and then we push to advance the ball. And the defense's job is to come straight in and stop us from pushing forward. And it's the boiler room, it's where the big guys thrive. And this was my element. I mean, I'm like drooling here on this field. Thinking, let's go, Rob, drive this thing in. Let's pound this thing in early. And I'm going to get my back patted tomorrow in the film session. And it starts getting ugly pretty quick. There's a lot of rules that start being broken. So First, a player enters in from the side, which in the sport of rugby, you're not allowed to do in these malls. And as he comes in from my left side, he takes his left arm, he binds me in a headlock. He takes his right arm and he hooks my leg. Both of these are penalties, but that bind around the head in that neck lock, that's an automatic yellow or red card in the sport of rugby. We don't play advantages. We don't let this play finish. The referee raises his arm and blows his whistle and then gives that player either a yellow or a red card, depending on the severity of the injury. But still, the referee's not calling anything. So 2 more players coming from the side. I'm continuing to push forward. I'm doing what I can to drive this mall in. This is my job right now. I'm in the heat of this moment of the national championship. This other guy comes in and he comes in really low. He sort of chops me down by my legs, another penalty. So I start falling. And now this isn't an uncommon thing for these malls to collapse. I'd say about half of these malls collapse. So I'm kind of just going through, routine collapse mall where, I hit the deck, I pop right back up and I go on to the next phase of play. But in this one, as I was going down, this player, he improves his headlock around my neck. My chin is severely pressed against my chest. I just remember I closed my eyes, I grit my teeth, and then it was just like poof. I couldn't feel anything. I couldn't move anything. I was lying there with my face in the dirt, screaming. I'm doing everything I can to get up, but I can't move a muscle. And my mind just immediately starts running wild. I'm thinking, am I going to be able to play rugby again? Am I going to go to school? Am I going to have a good career? And, one day I'll meet a girl, get married, start a family. I mean, all of those things were an extreme question. I was just thinking at that point, am I even going to be able to feed myself again? I couldn't wiggle my fingers. I couldn't move my arms. I couldn't wiggle my toes. I couldn't even feel it. And at that moment, things seemed very bleak, and it was absolutely horrifying.
Yeah, I'm just sitting here absorbing what you just said, and I can only imagine how terrifying this would be. Probably about a year ago, I spoke to a kid who played small college ball back in the Midwest, and he ran down on a kickoff and, just took the wrong hit. And that's what happened. As you were telling that story, and then we'll kind of get into part 2 of this. As you were telling that story, the opposing player for Arkansas State that had you in this kind of death grip lock around your neck, have you ever communicated with him? Has he ever reached out?
No, he has never reached out, and he's never said he's sorry. Now, I'm 4.5 years into this injury since that happened on May 6, 2017, and not once have I received any kind of communication with this person. And what made this so frustrating is, at first we didn't exactly know how this injury had occurred. It was very quick, and the game footage had a bad angle. We couldn't really see what happened. The mall collapsed and one person didn't get up, and I was just having to deal with that situation, and the surgery, pneumonia, inability to swallow that I had in that very initial stage. And it was probably about 3 days into this that my coaches gave him a folder to my dad and sent a video over of some very clear sideline and end zone footage, and both in still shots and video of what happened to me, which was clearly a strong bind around my neck, which is extremely illegal in the sport of rugby, clearly illegal, which caused my paralysis and really my face to slam against my chest as the top of my head stayed in one position and my body rolled over it. And I immediately, when I looked at those pictures and saw that video, I was filled with rage like I've never felt before. It was just this hate and just feeling of complete animosity towards another human being that I've never had. Because in a contact sport, when someone hits you, you hit them back harder. Someone punches you, you punch them back, and you punch them back harder. That's kind of just like how I was played in these contact sports. That's the mindset, and to be stronger, to be physically tougher. And here a person just put me on my back and I couldn't get up. I felt so helpless and just filled with all this rage. And I'm a man of God. My faith is very important to me. And also just my ability to control my mindset, and my feelings, and make logical decisions going forward was so important to me at that point, where I had to make the real conscious decision to forgive this person. So, people would ask me, and I'd have my own internal dialogue saying, Robert, what do you think about this person? What's your take on this? And no matter how much anger I was feeling, I would always say, I forgive this person and I wish him well. Even though on the inside, I didn't feel it at all. That is not what I wanted to be saying. But deep down, I knew that by not forgiving this person, the only thing I was doing was hurting myself. And I think forgiveness is always the answer, whether that be when someone does wrong to us, or whether that be even when we're just kind of mad at a situation, when it seems like the universe is just against you. When we can put those things in the past and look forward, that's when we get the power back. Because if I were to hold a grudge and continue to live in anger these last 4.5 years, I certainly be where I am today, and I certainly wouldn't be as happy as I am today. So it was a real process for me to reach that state of where I could say I forgave a person and I could feel it as well. But it was absolutely the right decision to do. And here I am today, completely freed of all that anger.
Yeah. I mean, that's really hard to do, right? I mean,
Yeah.
because that's just called natural human emotion. And with natural human emotion, that's easy to say and really hard to do, because like you said, those things are churning inside your gut, and that those are what's really going on with inside you. But as you pointed out, and you said that you can't fly high if you have negative weight on your back, right? And especially, I think there's two different levels here. There's the level of we all go through that. It doesn't matter if you've got everything working the way it should be working. And it adds a whole nother layer when every single inch and ounce of your positive energy needs to go towards your healing and not towards others who may or may not have contributed to this situation. It's the fates. It's what happened. I'm sure I could have taken 1,000 hits, and any one of those hits could have ended up, in the same situation that you're in today. But what's really interesting to me is, maybe you've always had this, maybe it was your parents, maybe it was your mom that stood by you, all those hours where you're going through this rehab. Because I know, like, when the doctor comes in and says, hey, I mean, I'm paraphrasing, of course, listen, you're never going to walk again. That's just a hard thing to swallow. And I'm trying to understand what the transition on two levels, that for you to, what was your arc? What was the time length where you went from all the hurt and despair and anger and frustration and all that stuff to, I'm going to prove these doctors wrong. And kind of like from when you first hopped on this podcast before we went live, you've got a great energy, you've got a great spirit about yourself. And that is so much about the human spirit of, pushing yourself when it comes to the world of possibility. Anything can happen. And certainly we'll get more into that here, but what was that timeline for you to kind of go through those different phases of despair and ultimately hope, to where you are today?
The decision to fight this injury was made on the first day. So, I got onto that stretcher and over to the hospital. We do our medical imaging. And, this whole time I'm kind of holding out hope that this might just be like a stinger, something where my nervous system was just in shock, but no permanent damage was done. And, I'm going to go back to school next week and do my finals is what I'm really hoping for. But, it's a bleak hope, and I'm barely holding on to that, but hoping that it gets there. And then you're right. My doctor comes in. He doesn't just say, I'll never walk again. He says, you will never move your hands. You will be lucky if you can do something like pick up a piece of pizza and bring it to your face. So things like playing rugby is impossible. I mean, you should hope to be able to go back to school, whether that be at Cal or maybe somewhere closer to where you live in the Sacramento area, or, very basic things. Robert, you need to get on board with that right now. And he didn't even stop there. He's recommended a surgery to me, the spinal fusion surgery through the front of my neck. They had the incision site done right here to the side of my esophagus. And there's a lot of important real estate right here. He's explaining to me, we're dealing with fractions of millimeters to have the precision to perform a surgery like this. And with my situation already being very deconditioned. I was spiking fevers up to around 105 degrees. My body was completely broken. He said I might not even survive this surgery. And, that's when my hope was getting pretty crushed. He said my odds of walking again were probably somewhere in the range of 2%, 1% or less. And before I could go into the surgery, which I had 30 minutes to make the decision on if I wanted to go into it or not, said I can make some phone calls. So actually the first phone call I made was to my religious advisor, and I wanted to ask for prayers that he send a priest over to my room before the surgery so I can get the sacrament of anointing of the sick, so that if I die, I will be more likely to go to heaven. I mean, that's how serious this was, dealing with my mortality at the age of 20. And he says he'll do that. But before he hangs up the phone, he gives me this piece of advice. And it gave me power in a powerless situation. And he said, Robert, throughout this journey, there's going to be a lot of things that you just can't control. But the one thing you can control is your mindset. So your positivity, your ambition, your willingness to wake up every day and fight, that's up to you. And this injury can't take that away from you. So in that moment, I didn't have a lot. I didn't have the odds on my side. I didn't have some doctor saying that everything was going to be okay or signs of life showing up in my body. But I had that choice to give it everything I had. Like I had that decision, the power of a choice within me to keep moving forward, to go into the surgery and start to do my best to kind of get those emotions and the fear and terror out of the way and start making really rational, logical decisions that are going to help me do best. And in that moment, I was kind of just thinking, I've got one life. We all have one life, and every day that passes is a day that will never come again. And I will not spend one of these days quitting. I won't spend one of these days trying to just come to terms with something. I mean, I wanted to fight this. And then in the end of the day, whether I was walking or I wasn't walking, I know I gave it everything I had. And that's the decision that was made then. Of course, it's a constant battle between, positivity and fighting those negative emotions. It's something that I continue to deal with to this day. But that goal of walking again, that was a day one goal that I've been on ever since 1,669 days later.
Yeah. So have you gone through also, and this is the last time I'll ask you about this type of logic, but have you gone through the why me?
Of course I have. Absolutely I have. And I think it's been probably like a 3-year process before I could really actually answer that question, because rugby was my purpose in life. I mean, I loved being an athlete. It was my worth. It was my accomplishment. And I could share this game with people younger than me and, give them passion and skill to be good at something in their lives. I mean, some of my greatest experiences and lifelong relationships were made, on the rugby team, whether they be on the pitch, in the locker room, in the bus, stuff like that. And, one moment, because of something that I couldn't control, it was gone forever. I was never going to have that ever again. And there was nothing that I could do about it. I lost my purpose. Like I lost a lot of my identity in life. And as this story has gone on and I've been able to share it and really think deeply about the tools that have helped me overcome this challenge that other people can use to overcome the challenges in their lives and inspire other people, it's answered that question of why me, because the scope of how this story has been able to impact people is extremely humbling and gives me that purpose that I lost when I wasn't able to play the sport of rugby anymore. I mean, I wake up every single day looking to make an impact on someone else's lives, whether that's with a podcast like this or posting a daily rehab video, whatever it is, doing something every day to take what happened to me, which would seem like nothing but a curse, and turn it into a gift. And that's a gift that I can share with someone else. So, I mean, I don't know. I don't think I was chosen for something like this.
Yeah.
It's not like God didn't break my neck. There was no higher power that broke my neck.
Mm-hmm.
It was a player from Arkansas State that broke my neck. But being able to take this and turn it into something beautiful that I can give it to someone else, I don't feel pity, and I don't want anybody else to feel pity for me. This is a gift that I'm on, and I'm very proud of this life.
Well, that's the right way to look at it. And I like to turn those words around. Like I said, if I ask you the question of like, why you, why me? And I like to put it the other way around because I've had to answer my own question of some of these different things I've done,
Mhm.
of why not me? Like
Yeah.
why, because so often when you set high goals, like why can't you be the part of the 1%, or actually no, 1%, you're never gonna, 1% you are gonna walk, 99% you're not gonna walk.
Mhm.
Why can't you be that 1%? Why can't I be the part of the 1% to play in the NFL? Why not me?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And sometimes it happens and sometimes it doesn't. But a lot of times your ceiling is your brain, right?
Mhm.
On what's going between your ears, as you've experienced. So, okay. I wanted to ask you about your parents
Yeah.
from their perspective, because I'm a parent too. I've got a 25-year-old. You're 25 years old now, and I just I can't imagine what that would have been like for them from their perspective, not from your perspective, from their perspective.
Mhm.
And and so what was that like? I know they were there to support you and everything, but from their side of the fence, like how did they respond to all this?
It was easily one of the hardest things for me when I had to first talk to my parents. They're laying on that field for the first time. And I can only imagine what they were thinking, because when I was on that field, I mean, I looked like a corpse. I was
Mhm.
not moving, I was barely breathing. But I was completely conscious in my head and, able to communicate and observe what's going on. And I always try to be so strong for them. I wanted to make my parents proud. And I mean, in this moment, I was weak. I was broken. And when they came over, my dad took a knee to my right side. He grabbed my hand and I couldn't feel it. And my mom was right behind me. And there was no cliche of saying everything's going to be okay. This is going to be
Mhm.
okay, Robert. That, I mean, in this moment, it was not okay. And we knew we had the challenge of our lives ahead of us to overcome this. But the one thing I do remember them saying, and it's stuck with me, and it's been true ever since, is we will never leave you, Robert. We are with you to the end. And I mean, through my tears, all I could say was, I love you more than anything in the world. Just saying it on repeat over and over and over again. And my family stepped up in a lot of ways. And my mom, she slept on a chair by my bedside for about 4 months. And whether that was pounding down on my lungs so that I could work mucus out of it, I was fighting pneumonia, or I mean, she wiped my tears. She was even just someone to talk to. I mean, I would not have done this without her. And my father was practically working another part-time job trying to work with insurance and hospitals to get me in the best facility that I could be in for my recovery. I mean, I just, family is the most important thing to me in my life. And I would say in the beginning, and say it now, I would give anything to be able to walk again, except my family and friends. And they stepped
Mhm.
up in so many ways. I mean, that includes my brother as well. And I remember, he actually wasn't at the game. He was taking his SAT that day. And, he got the phone call of the news of what had just happened, and was told to get down to Santa Clara, where I was in this hospital and competing, as quick as he could, because I might not wake up from this surgery. And here's another person who I always try to be so strong for, and be a good role model to. And I couldn't be strong in this moment anymore. And I was fighting so many negative emotions. I told my mom, you have to tell him before he gets in this room that he's not allowed to cry. And he's not allowed to be sad or break down. Maybe that's selfish, but it's just, I just couldn't handle it. I couldn't take on anymore of that
Yeah.
negativity. And man, he was probably one of the most strong people on that day. He's the person who held the phone in front of me as I FaceTimed all my closest friends. I told them what happened, that I was going into the surgery. I might not make out of it, and I just want to let them know I loved them. And I mean, he held the phone there. He might have dabbed a tear or two from his eyes, and he was typing out messages as I dictated to him to send to my closest friends and my teammates. And I mean, he stood there for me, and he stood by my side ever since. I can't even explain what my parents have gone through throughout all this, but I think on the other end of it, they would say now it's nothing but pride, and something that they're happy to be a part of. And are so happy that it's turned out well. And also that entire time, my mom says this all the time, that I was always still me. I was always the same person, and I could speak to them and had my same personality. I just had a serious physical goal to overcome here. But the impact that it's made on the world, and coming out of it on the other end, not just moving my body a lot better now, but with a true purpose in life and an impact on the world. I think it's pure pride from all of us.
So let's talk about the 1%. I did see some videos where, you're moving your arms. For those who are listening, we're doing a YouTube. This will be on YouTube. So for people on YouTube, you can see you're moving your hands and your face and everything's all good. And for those who can only hear this via the audible, you do have that movement. I did see the videos I mentioned that you were up and you were walking. And so tell me more about that. Like, what were the stages where you're starting to wiggle your toe? I saw that last night, your finger. Mm-hmm. So obviously these things come in incremental, wins, and all the way to, I'm sure there's still a long way to go, but like give us an idea where that sits today.
Yeah. So when I started out, when I was first injured, I couldn't move or feel anything below about my collarbone level. So I could shrug my shoulders up. That was pretty much it. And as my spine started coming out of spinal shock, I was able to, I had pretty good strength in my shoulders. So I could lift my arms up, and my biceps as well to be able to curl my arm up, and some in my wrists as well, which is extremely helpful with an injury like this. But nothing in my triceps. I couldn't lift my arm above my head. Nothing in my fingers, making it extremely challenging to be able to get throughout the day. And then about from halfway down my chest down, no motion at all. Nothing. Not as hard as I close my eyes and grip my teeth, I wasn't getting a flicker. But I did have like deep pressure sensation. So you could put a knife in my leg at that time and it wouldn't have hurt, but I would have, felt that something's there. And when you're an injury like this, things become very relative, very quick. And having something as simple as just that deep pressure was a really great sign for my recovery. So in the first, about month, I wasn't really able to even do much rehabilitation because I was fighting pneumonia and inability to swallow at that time. So what I would do is I would try to move every muscle group in my body from head to toe. So I would start with something I could move, like with my traps here, moving my shoulders up, and I'd lift my arms up off the ground. Then I'd start with things I couldn't move. So, closing my hand, opening my hand, I'd do 20 reps of each muscle group, working through my chest and all my core muscles, through every muscle in my legs, all the way down to my toes. And all right, I'd be sitting here like pretty tired, definitely mentally, but also physically, just kind of like taken from working so hard to get these things to contract and closing my eyes and envisioning it, but nothing happening and staying on it every single day, multiple times a day, even though I wasn't getting any signs of life and my doctors weren't telling me to expect any signs of life. And it was about 6 weeks into my injury that I could look down at my hand and just see a flicker of movement in one of my fingers, or look down at my toes and that nasty cleat feet that I had from having my feet jammed up in cleats for so long, and see a toe wiggle there. When I went to the second hospital, their outlook was so different. And when I first came in there, they said, Robert, what happened to you is catastrophic, but we don't know where you're going to progress from here. The one thing we can guarantee you is we're going to give you everything that we have to optimize this recovery. So when they saw stuff like that, it wasn't saying anything like, don't get your hopes up. They were really, intrigued by it and thinking how we can turn something as small as wiggling my toe, to like put me in a walking apparatus. And I'm thinking like, I don't think you understand here. I can wiggle my toe, but I can't like get up and walk. But, with just that optimism and the power of modern science and medicine, it's like building a skyscraper brick by brick and taking a little signal that's making it past this snip in the spinal cord, and then using something like that to build more connections to where now I can engage every muscle in my body to some degree of strength. And it allows me to be able to stand up out of my wheelchair into my walker on my own. And I can walk about 300 yards now, and it continues to progress.
Wow. So the great thing about that is that the upside of hope, right? I mean, because at the end of the day, that's what we're all holding on to when some
Mhm.
adversity hits us all is like, what's the path? What's the path out? And maybe you're never going to be an Olympic sprinter, but going from you're never going to walk again, going in that 1% of moving your arms, moving your legs, and you're only 25. And so, probably the good thing, the good and the bad thing being so tragic because you're so young, but the good thing, you're, strong body, you
Yeah.
got your muscles, there's a lot of things going for you, with that. So it sounds like it's been a very positive recovery to get you literally back on your feet, and to
Mhm.
go 300 yards is a long way. I mean, that's seriously a long way.
It's amazing to be able to take 2 steps is a really big deal after having an injury like this, let alone 300 or more steps. In what's a relatively short time frame of about 4.5 years after my injury. And I'll be honest with you, I have way more bad workouts than good workouts. There's sometimes I will spend 2 months just trying to match a previous PR. And man, I'll get like half of my PR or a quarter of my PR. I'm thinking like, man, I've been doing this for over 1,600 days now. And I mean, this is what I get for putting in that much effort consistently and exhaustingly. I mean, it's really a struggle. It's not a comfortable thing for me to do, to get up and walk. I'm giving everything I have just to put my foot mere inches in front of the other. So you have to like have a really strong perspective, the right perspective to be able to take little gains, and keep that motivating you forward. Because for me and for a lot of us on the path to success, there's going to be a lot more bad days than good days. So I mean, you have to be able to appreciate those good days when they come, and have a good vision for what you're looking to achieve going forward, because those why questions, they surface all the time. And I've been able to push through that by just appreciating those little gains. And there's a lot of other things I can add to that on answering the why questions. But I mean, one of those certainly is just being able to appreciate the small things.
Yeah, I've really identified with what you just said um, with mountain climbing, right?
Mhm.
And like especially on a mountain like Mount Everest, it's so grand, it's so massive. There's so much danger. And again, I don't want to compare it in any way to your injury, but just in terms of the mental component of it, of having to, it's literally one step at a time. You go up and
Yeah.
you go back one, you go up two and you come back one, and the whole breathing thing and everything else. And to me, it's just always about just focus on that day, not
Yeah.
the outcome. And having those little wins will get you to the eventual summit.
Hmm.
But if you try to like look at it and like, oh my God, there's just no way, it gets
Yeah.
too overwhelming for your brain. And so I
Yeah.
really like the way you're thinking about it, in terms of, and you've gone about it in your life, inch by inch, step by step, and understanding the bigger picture, because it all counts at the end of the day. And look, the other thing I say too is hard things are hard, right?
Hmm.
And if it was easy, anybody can do it. And especially to become, in your case, in that 1% is magical. And
Hmm.
there's no shortcuts to the top. You got to put in the hard work, and that's just the way it is. From your rugby career to other things you do in your life, to overcoming this physical challenge today. In terms of we came together because I know you do a lot of speaking and that type
Yeah.
of thing. I'm sure that's been really rewarding to get in front of people, share your story. What has that done for you?
It's amazing, and that's really what the purpose of my life is now, is to share this story. As a speaker, it's certainly not something that I ever saw myself doing before my injury. And when this all came about, people would come up and say, Robert, you've got an amazing story and you tell it so well, you should think about this being a career for you one day. I thought that was pretty attractive, that was pretty enticing to, and really reveals that purpose behind this challenge, and how I can turn it into a positive thing, not just something that threw me on my back, but something that I've been able to use as a platform, and a blessing, and something that I was grateful to have in my life, because of this injury. And so I was invited to give a few speeches, first just at like classes and groups and organizations around Cal's campuses. And, then for larger corporations, like I was doing an internship with Intel, and they asked that I would come in and speak to all of America's and South America's operations team. And with the underlying message of overcoming adversity, and that my challenges are visible. You can look at me and you can see someone who goes through a lot every single day, but everybody has a challenge. And I'll also go to say that everybody's paralyzed by something, whether that be mental or emotional. There's something that stops us from being our best. And so what I did is I got together with my coach, Jack Clark, who is an incredible rugby coach, an incredible culture consultant and speaker, and cares about, me, my success and my story so much. We sat down every week for over a semester. Just like going after every word and putting together my experiences and these tools that have helped me overcome this challenge that I can give to other people to overcome adversities and also just reach new heights and accomplish new goals that they have in their lives. And it's turned into my life's mission to share this story. And I actually just dusted off the last chapter, the first draft of the manuscript for my book, which I'm really excited to release sometime down the road. And it's revealed the purpose for me. And every single time I get done with one of these speeches, I'm just thinking like, when's the next one? When can I do this again? It's just so fulfilling. And it just shows like that full picture of how when you work with something like this to battle through an adversity or accomplish a goal, and you find a way to have it help somebody else, not just yourself, but somebody else as well, then that reveals true purpose.
Love that. I know you have a website. Where can people find you?
Yeah, so website's robertpaylor.com, and then I'm on all the major social media platforms, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. I've kind of got a monopoly on the name Robert Paylor. So it's not too hard to find me. But I post my daily rehab videos and my Instagram stories, and I think that's something that's really, really like important to see and remember. Is it's not just about the big milestones and the PRs and when everybody sees the glorious moments, but it's about putting in that dedicated, consistent work every day, whether you're feeling happy or you're feeling sad or whatever's going on in life, like not giving up, not quitting, and just being consistent with it. It doesn't always have to be, intense and for long periods of time, but consistent. And that's what I hope to instill in other people's lives. And it's been a lot of fun to do.
Love it. Words of a true warrior. Thank you for that. So look, I appreciate you coming on. You are an inspiration. You're probably just at the tip of the iceberg in terms of your potential of all these different things you can do, physically, mentally, spiritually, uplifting other people. So congrats to you. It's been a wonderful conversation. You're a bright light. So keep charging.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Mark. That means the world to me.
Absolutely. All right. There he is, the one, the only Robert Paylor. Thank you. Bye-bye.